In the past, shrine maidens rarely served for more than a few years. Perhaps a decade was the most they would serve. This was because, by definition, only a girl who hadn't begun to menstruate could serve as a shrine maiden. The current shrine maiden, however, is in her 40s now. She is older than the king, which means she can insert herself into places a shrine maiden wouldn't have dared before. In fact, it has made women all over Shale more politically influential. I see, Maomao said. She had already known parts of this story, but this put everything in a new light. 40 years old and her menarche still hasn't begun. That definitely got Maomao's attention. It was very unusual but not unheard of. Several things could cause it. Maomao did not know how the shrine maiden felt about the situation, but she was intensely interested. Has that ever happened before? She asked. The answer to that question is directly related to why we are here, so let me pick up the story there, Lahan said while munching on a thin sliced pig's ear. There have been cases in the past. When their visitor does not arrive, the next shrine maiden has always been appointed after the current one turns 20. That made sense from both a political and a symbolic perspective. So how has the current shrine maiden managed to stay in office for so long? Maomao asked. She is special. Lahan took a piece of paper from the folds of his robe. The painting looked like a classical depiction of a beautiful woman. However, the hair appeared to be only lightly sketched in. It closely resembled the artist's drawing of the woman with white hair and red eyes. The current shrine maiden is an albino. There are several conditions that govern which children might be chosen to be shrine maidens. However, the most revered candidates are pale children. An albino is rare, even among shrine maidens. They are so venerated that one could still occupy her position in spite of all precedent. Maomao did not say anything, but the dots finally connected for her. Do you want to know the truth of the pale woman? She thought of the painting of the pale beauty that the artist had encountered in the West. Could she have been this shrine maiden? She would have been the right age at the time. Albino people were said to lack what would ordinarily give their skin color. Sometimes pale children were born through sheer chance. However, some bloodlines were more prone to producing them than others. They were supposed to be as rare in Sheo as they were in Li. Lahan said, the shrine maiden is currently indisposed with an illness. She has come to our country for medical treatment. No man is allowed to lay hands on her, not even a eunuch. That is why court ladies serve as her medical assistants. Yes, court ladies. The shrine maiden has travelled a long distance from her home. There is also the distinct possibility of causing an international incident if anything goes wrong. We needed people who know how to improvise. That explained why the test had taken such an odd form. What if none of us had passed the test? NN said. Then we would simply have had to ask someone else to go. It would have been a last resort, of course. Maomao was pondering who they might have sent when she thought of a lovely person who looked quite good in men's clothes. Suhari was the most suitable person in every respect, with the exception of her parentage. She was probably considered a last resort because she was, in the end, a prisoner. Consort Eileen seemed rather worried about the shrine maiden and her illness, if I may say so. Is that because the maiden serves as a way to keep an eye on her political rivals? NN asked. You've hit upon the general idea, Lahan replied. That was somewhat unclear. It was true that nothing Lahan said was specifically contradictory. However, something still bothered Maomao. The most successful lies were wrapped around a kernel of truth. She suspected that Lahan wasn't lying to them, but he wasn't telling the whole truth either. Should she try to press the point? Maomao thought, but if she wasn't careful, NN or even Yao might catch on. Instead, she decided to stay silent for the moment. Chapter 8, The Thought Behind the Thought. On their first day off in a long time, Maomao's suspicion that something was going on turned to certainty. She wanted to know how things were going in the pleasure district, so she slipped out of the dormitory and headed for the verdigris house. She discovered more or less what the letters had insisted. Everything was fine. It was midday and the place felt relaxed. An apprentice was sweeping near the front door, and a rather obnoxious child was playing with Maomao the cat. Freckles, Chuyu exclaimed when he saw Maomao. He came charging over to her, still holding the cat. Maomao fought and struggled and even kicked Chuyu in the stomach. Finally, she managed to slip away from him and sought shelter behind Maomao the person. so at least she still remembered her. Maomao picked up the creature and led her over the fence. The cat ran off. That was one fickle furball. Maomao hoped the cat would bring her some rare herbs as a thank you. Why don't you ever come home? Chuyu demanded. Because I am working. I do not have much choice. Chuyu looked like he was about to cling to her, so she put a hand against his head to hold him back. Was it just her, or had he gotten taller? And was his skin more tan, perhaps because he was outside playing every day? His front teeth had even straightened out, making him look markedly less dumb. Is Seizen around? Maomao asked, glancing about in search of the apprentice apothecary. Yes, he is with the one-eyed guy right now. So Kokyu was here too. Maomao made her way to the apothecary shop, which occupied a space rented from the verdigris house. She greeted familiar courtesans as she went. She could hear voices from inside. One voice said, "That's right. You need to make sure you grind it to a very fine powder. If you get the amount even slightly wrong when you make the pills, they won't be as effective." Another voice responded, "Okay." Seizen was pulverizing something, and Kokyu was giving him diligent instructions. She was glad they were doing their jobs, but her opinion quickly changed when she saw them in the shop. It was hot, which explained why all the doors and windows were open. This caused its own problems, though. Several courtesans grinned as they watched the two men work in the close quarters. Kokyu was quite attractive when he covered the scars on his face. Seizen's appearance was unremarkable, though he wasn't ugly. Those ladies are rotten to the core, Maomao thought. Many women enjoyed male-male love. The verdigris house did not trade in male-male prostitution, so Maomao was sure the women were enjoying this. She marched up to the two men who seemed to have no idea they were the source of such entertainment. "Looks like everything is going well here," she said. "Oh yeah, we're doing great," Kokyu replied, sounding every bit the dumbass he usually was. I think it's been pretty tough," Seizen said. He could barely hide the resentment on his face. "I am so glad you are not having any problems." "Hey, aren't you listening to me?" Seizen wailed. Wasn't he the one who had written to her that everything was fine, or had the old lady forced him to say that? Maomao knew that asking him about it would only lead to a long list of complaints, so she decided to ignore him. Seizen could be very stubborn. Maomao looked around the shop to make sure everything was in order. She quickly checked to see if anything was out of stock, or if there was anything there that shouldn't have been. "What are these?" she asked. There was something resting on the medicine cabinet, and it wasn't medicine. In fact, she had never seen anything quite like them. They looked a bit like thin rice crackers. Perhaps they were some sort of snack. "Oh, those," Kokyu said, taking one of the crackers. She then sprinkled some crushed medicine over it. People can take their medicine by sprinkling it on one of these and eating it, or they can soften it up in water and then put it inside. Huh, that's novel. Maomao was genuinely impressed. It was often said that the best medicine for the body was the worst tasting, and one reason people avoided medications was simply the bad flavor. Maomao often helped people take their medicine. She advised them to mix it with honey, but honey was a luxury. If people could take medicine without tasting it, no one would have to worry about the flavor. "Aren't these a little large to swallow, though?" Yes, they are. I wouldn't recommend them for children or the elderly. They might choke." He shook a pitcher of water as if to emphasize it was available. "I hear people take medicine this way all the time in the West. They say the people there have more saliva than we do." "Really? You are very knowledgeable." Maomao's eyes were starting to shine. Kokyu could look like a real dumbass, but he did actually know a thing or two about medicine. He certainly had strong basics. She could tell that from listening to him instruct Seizen. "Where did you learn your medicine, Kokyu?" she asked. "You cannot possibly be entirely self-taught, ha ha ha. The person who took me under their wing came from a Western country. They had golden hair and thick fur all over their face and body." "Were they from Sheo?" "HRM, farther west than that, I think," he said. That was enough to intrigue Maomao. "Do you speak their language just a tiny bit? And where is the person who raised you? She would like to meet them if she could." "Oh, they are gone now. This is what got them," Kokyu said, pointing to his smallpox scars. "I see." She was sorry to hear it. Doctors often contracted illnesses and died. They spent more time with sick people than anyone else. Seizen, who had been left out of the conversation, nudged Maomao. I'm sorry to interrupt your chat, he said, but they are asking for you. He pointed outside. Maomao saw the madam and Lahan waiting. As often happened, Maomao found herself in a private room for private conversations. The madam always provided accommodations that matched the profit she expected from a visitor. It was one of her more amusing traits. Today, the snacks she provided were better than average. By the way, when Lahan's father visited, she only offered tepid water in a chipped teacup. At least she no longer chased him away with a broom. I heard you were off today, so I thought you might be here. My good luck, here you are. Good luck, certainly. I know you checked before you came, Maomao said. Lahan would never have done something like this without making the proper preparations. But anyway, forget the niceties and get to the point if you would. I'm busy doing what? Chatting, maybe, but talking with you always just feels like a waste of time. Watch your tone, I am your honored elder brother and you should speak to me as such. Maomao was tired of this banter. She was eager to move things along. I know why you are here. It is about that thing you wanted with the medical assistants, right? How nice that we are on the same page, Lahan said. He was a very careful man. No doubt he had looked into Yao's and Enen's backgrounds. He had also acquainted himself with their personalities. He had seen no cause for concern. He still wasn't willing to fully trust them with the most important part. I still have questions about the examination you are to perform on the Sheo Shrine Maiden. Such as, Maomao asked, such as what if the Shrine Maiden isn't actually the Shrine Maiden? Do you understand what I mean? She did not. Do not pretend to be shy. Just tell me what is happening. Maomao picked up a steamed bun and bit it in half. The filling was sweet and sticky. She made a sound of disapproval and put the remaining half on Lahan's plate. Maomao did not greatly enjoy sweet things, but unfortunately the madam did not much consider her preferences. She was determined to please Lahan. You heard what the consort said, only a woman who has not menstruated can be a shrine maiden. Yes, I heard her, but some women go their entire lives without menarche. It was unusual but not unheard of. Lahan said yes, but has such a woman ever had a child? That stopped Maomao cold. She frowned in surprise. That would turn everything on its head, wouldn't it? Lahan said. When was this? Maomao asked. There was a time when the Shrine Maiden was feeling unwell and left the capital of Sheo to recuperate elsewhere. That was about 20 years ago. She returned from her convalescence only a few years back. Consort Eileen was serving as an apprentice Shrine Maiden. Apprentice Shrine Maiden. Maomao assumed that if Eileen had been an apprentice, she was preparing to become the actual Shrine Maiden. This meant that if the current Shrine Maiden hadn't been there, Eileen could have filled the position herself by now. Maomao tried to remember when the painter had seen the beautiful, pale woman. Not many people matched his description, but a travelling painter would not usually see someone as important as Sheo's Shrine Maiden. However, if she was away recovering in the countryside, it would make sense. And if during her recovery the Shrine Maiden had borne a child? Lahan asked, what are the chances of a pale woman giving birth to a pale daughter? Maomao said, higher than one being born to a parent who is not albino, I would assume. If the father were also albino, a pale child could be almost guaranteed. But even if it were only the mother, it was a distinct possibility. If the Shrine Maiden had given birth to a child, that would create many questions. Are you suggesting this child was the White Lady? Lahan grinned. His expression was unsettling. I cannot say for certain, but it would make sense, wouldn't it? We currently have the White Lady locked up, but she refuses to tell us who gave her orders. Consort Eileen is eager to say it was her fellow emissary, Isla. Everyone seemed strangely focused on the White Lady. Are you saying Lady Eileen saw this baby when it was born? Perhaps that is why she has turned to us. The White Lady had been running amok in a foreign country for whatever reason. Shea would not find that any more politically congenial than Li did. Some people, however, might be personally pleased by it. Just to be certain, is the political enemy who chased Lady Eileen out of her home this Shrine Maiden? If that were the case, it would explain a few things, Maomao said. Eileen claimed that Isla was behind everything, but what if Eileen herself was the one pulling the White Lady's strings? Was she stirring up trouble in neighbouring nations in order to bring down the pale Shrine Maiden, whose position she begrudged? Ensuring that the Shrine Maiden wouldn't be in the way when Sheo had to rely on Li for help, sooner rather than later. Maybe Maomao was being asked to find out whether the White Lady was the Shrine Maiden's daughter, because such knowledge in itself would be a powerful trump card. She shook her head. Perhaps I am simply overthinking things, but why was she being asked to investigate this? Lahan said, for the time being, I am acting on the assumption that Consort Eileen is telling the truth. He continued, I do not think she is hostile toward the Shrine Maiden, but she does want to find out whether the woman is hiding anything. She might be thinking that when the truth comes out, it will give her leverage to get the Shrine Maiden on her side. She claims Isla unleashed the White Lady to undermine the Shrine Maiden, so she may feel that the enemy of her enemy is her friend. It is amazing how easily such unsavory things roll off your tongue. Governments were not monolithic, however. They could be trilithic or even quadrilithic. Eileen, who was politically ousted, might be willing to use any available means to get her revenge. She did not seem that way when she was here last year, though. The two emissaries had come dressed in matching outfits, and they looked practically like twin sisters. Could so much have happened in just 1 year? Are you sure you are not just helping Lady Eileen because you have a soft spot for pretty women? Maomao asked. What a thing to accuse your honored elder brother of. She decided to ignore that comment. She did not have time for this. In politics, you never knew who might become your enemy or when. Perhaps Eileen had entered the rear palace because she knew Li had apprehended the White Lady. If she succeeded in bringing the Shrine Maiden into her fold, did she mean to go back to Sheol? This is all so complicated. There were many questions and much room for doubt. Would she truly share the truth about the White Lady so readily with someone from another country? Even if it was to get the Shrine Maiden on her side, didn't it stand to become a major headache for Sheol? She likely has her own reasons. Even Maomao, who was not particularly interested in politics, understood this one thing. Li could not simply go and execute the White Lady. That understanding had to be her starting point for everything. Lahan, thankfully, appeared to realize what Maomao was thinking. You do not seem to understand what I am saying. Let me explain it this way. If the White Lady is the Shrine Maiden's daughter, then as long as we hold her, we have leverage over the Shrine Maiden. We also have a check on Isla, who chased Eileen out of Sheol. The White Lady is the key to the current international situation. Maomao frowned. You understand why I cannot speak of this to anyone else. She presumably meant Yao and Enen. That is no excuse for dragging me into it, Maomao said. She had half a mind to break his stupid spectacles. She was really worried about what she would do if he did not pass their test. I suppose I would have had to go to the Sway Noble, but given her position, the hassle involved would have been unimaginable. Maomao guessed he was referring to Suhari. Making use of someone who was no longer supposed to exist would require a false identity. It would be simple to say she was the daughter of a government official or someone similar. However, her true background might still cause problems for them. Also, she had visited the doctor's office frequently before this. It would surprise most people, at the very least, if a woman who had died were to come back to life. Maomao was concerned about what status she would be given as a result of this most recent test. From the beginning, she had urged them to simply treat her as Liu Emen's adopted daughter. Now that he was a proper member of the medical staff, there should be no problem. So do you want me to go to Sheol this time? It was hard enough getting to the western capital and back. Maomao had practically lost track of how long the round trip had taken. That's one thing you don't have to worry about, Lahan said, munching on the other half of Maomao's discarded bun. The maiden is coming here. She's what? Maomao nearly yelled, startling Lahan so badly that he choked on his bun and had to drink some tea. What do you mean coming here? If she is sick, you cannot make her travel all that way. She rubbed her temples. Lahan wiped some tea away from his mouth with his hand, then held out the same hand to stop her. That is politics. Li is as much a factor in Sheol's thinking as Sheol is in ours. Naturally, they would want a presence at a major ceremony. Major ceremony, haven't you heard? Empress Jaikai is now His Majesty's legal wife. Her son is next in line for the succession. Her family is to be officially granted a name. From Sheol's perspective, that would mean a strong clan with direct ties to the imperial family right on their border. They wouldn't want to come off looking second best. Right, he was talking about the young prince's formal debut. This occasion was significant enough that emissaries from other countries would be present. His Majesty's other sons have been too short-lived, Maomao reflected. All of them had died before a ceremony like this could be held. The current prince was also less than a year old. Perhaps there were political reasons for presenting him so early. The journey is not a short one, however you make it. Sheo has a major sea route. If you can travel with the seasonal wind, it is much faster than making the trip by land, Lahan said. I am still not sure. If anything were to happen to the shrine maiden while she was abroad, it would be easy and worrying to imagine responsibility being placed on the host country.